Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 19th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. You can see the ridge that's brought us our warm and above average conditions here across Pacific Northwest, and our stagnant winds as well, and some offshore flow bringing that smoke into western portions, especially of BC, Washington, and Oregon. Strong system moving up towards Alaska, south coast. You can see it's going to move over the top of us and not have much of an impact on our weather. That system dropped off some cold air aloft here. This low is now cut off. This is what's known as a Kona Low for the Hawaiian Island forecasters here. It can change up the wind pattern, bring thunderstorms, stormy conditions, depending on Hawaiian Island's proximity to that low pressure. So a little bit of Hawaii 101 for you. But what everybody wants to know about, the pattern change coming across the Aleutian Islands is clearly evident here. Moving towards western Alaska, it's going to move over the top of the ridge, down into the Pacific Northwest, bringing us some precipitation, potential mountain snows, and maybe even a windy period here or two as we go through the extended forecast. Now, taking a look a little bit closer here, look at the smoke and the low clouds intermixed through the Puget Sound here. Just putrid conditions for most of the areas actually here across the Willamette Valley and the Puget Sound. Look at the smoke just kind of intermixed all the way through the Fraser River Valley. Some very unhealthy conditions there, as well as through much of the Puget Sound here. Also, smoke through eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, but there should be some relief tomorrow as we kick the onshore flow on across the region here before the bulk of the precipitation comes in during the night on Friday. Taking a look here, you can see those unhealthy air conditions for the Fraser River Valley and the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, eastern portions as well. I can't wait until this smoke is out of here and this precip starts piling up on the Cascades so we can put these fires out. Now, taking a look here at SeaTac, 68 degrees, again above average, only 2 degrees off the all-time record high, but set 1974 here. You can see how our record highs really fall off the table as you get towards the end of October. A lot of them just in the 60s here. Tomorrow is the 19th year anniversary of Seattle's rainiest day here. 5+ inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period at SeaTac there back in 2003. I was working outside in downtown Seattle that day, so I got to experience that fully. Here's the northern hemisphere here. We're looking at 10,000 feet temperatures. You can see the colder air over the North Pole here. There's Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. Here's the Hawaiian Islands. And as we put this into motion here, you can see our pattern change clearly, moving across the Aleutians toward western Alaska, across the Gulf of Alaska, down towards the Pacific Northwest. By the time we get to Friday night and Saturday morning, we'll have much colder air aloft over the region here, and it should be raining for much of us here as we go through Saturday into Sunday here. Then another system slides through British Columbia here through Monday, and then potentially another one on Tuesday night into Wednesday. Then the Gulf of Alaska Trophy, and it looks like it's going to be pretty close too, potentially spreading more frontal systems across Pacific Northwest. Now taking a look here, European on the left, GFS on the right, and we're going to back this up so we're current. You can see the ridge over the area on both models. Again, this is Northern Hemisphere, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon, Hawaiian Islands here. This is the low bringing the pattern change across the region here. You'll see it coming up over the top of the ridge, opening up the trough over the Pacific Northwest. Good agreement here on the GFS and the European, of course, in the short term. But then the European has kind of been handling this second system a little bit differently as the GFS just leaves the trough kind of open. The European has been showing a more organized storm moving through BC here that looked like it had some wind potential. Models are backing off a little bit on that, but there'll probably be some windy periods, windy areas up through British Columbia at least, and potentially down through Washington and the Oregon coast. We'll continue to monitor that system. And then you can see the European developing another late breaking wave that approaches the Washington, Oregon coast. We got to watch that one for windstorm potential as well coming up here. But this is a low confidence solution, especially these late breaking storms close to the coastline here. So we'll just have to watch this day by day. This is looking all the way out towards Tuesday evening at this point. You can see the GFS developed that same low, but further off to the west over the Gulf of Alaska. A strong storm moves up north of Vancouver Island, and then the Gulf of Alaska troughing gets going. Pretty good model agreement with that through the extended forecast. This is looking out towards next Thursday night into Friday morning. So as you can see, next week is going to be pretty active, and we're not going to be dealing with anything like we have been the last couple of weeks with the big ridging, offshore flow, and these really nasty smoke storms moving in through the western portions of our area. This is looking at the European here. Check this out. So we have this very weak system sliding down through Thursday afternoon. Maybe some precipitation for the North Cascades, Southern BC Cascades, maybe even a convergence zone for the Central Cascades as we go through Thursday night to Friday morning here. The important part about that is we're going to turn the flow onshore across the area again and start to clean up the atmosphere. Then the rain arrives here as we go through Friday afternoon into evening. Look at the snows coming for the Cascades, the Rockies, higher terrain in British Columbia. This system breaks late right along the Washington, Oregon coast. This could bring some breezy conditions. You got to watch that. If that develops a little bit quicker and a little bit deeper, that would bring a pretty good blow to the Oregon coast. We'll watch that system there. And then you can see the rain and snow continue, perhaps some convergent zones in the wake of that system as it moves through. Another strong low moves through British Columbia here, another frontal system all the way down through Oregon. Cascades getting some snowfall, and then the Europeans been wanting to throw this potential windy event at us here as we go through next week. Again, the confidence is going to be low probably up until a couple days before this event occurs, if it does. But the main takeaway from this is we're going to have several rounds of potential wind across the area. No huge storm looks imminent right now. Things are still off in fantasy land as far as big windstorm potential is concerned, but there is some potential for it. Then as we go on through the extent a little bit further, there goes that system we talked about. That would have been Tuesday night. Now we're going through Thursday morning here. Another frontal system approaches the Pacific Northwest as we go into the following weekend here. So active weather likely to continue. This is the European 100-meter wind speed. You see the offshore component here as we go through Wednesday. But now as we go through Thursday, you can kind of see it turn onshore here. And you can see the winds coming through the gorge out of the west across the east slopes of the Cascades. Generally onshore flow as we go through the day Thursday towards Thursday afternoon. So we're going to stir up the atmosphere before a lot of the rain arrives here. And then Friday is just going to add on to that. So we're going to bring some nice precipitation values. And you can see fully onshore across the entire region here by the time we get to Saturday morning. Should really notice a big improvement in air quality by this weekend, and hopefully this precipitation can start putting out these fires here. As you can see, the next system roll through here on the day Monday. Next system comes on shore here as we go through Tuesday afternoon. So multiple rounds of stormy weather are possible here through next week. And this is looking at the European control run. This is going all the way out towards early November. You can see the potential snowfall we're likely to get here across some of the higher terrain of BC. Nice bullseye for the North Cascades, Rocky Mountains as well, even for the Olympics and the Oregon Cascades, even some down through the Sierra Nevada, although not a lot. Now, this is precipitation total. Check this out. I mean, as you go through early November, look at the European ensemble control with just huge amounts of precipitation across the Cascades here and big amounts even through the lowlands as well. But we have to be careful with these ensemble members and the amount of precipitation. Sometimes it overdoes it. But I'm just kind of showing you the trend for active weather as we go through early November here. Now, taking a look here, we're not even really experiencing or expected to experience any atmospheric rivers. An atmospheric river needs to stay trained on one area for 24 plus hours to be considered an atmospheric river. And you can see the progressive nature of this as it kind of moves down the west coast. Next one slides in down the west coast. So it's going to be throwing frontal systems at us, but no prolonged period of heavy precipitation for any one area. So this is not an atmospheric river event coming up here, at least yet, through the next 2 weeks. That could change as we get through the extended and we start to bring the Gulf of Alaska troughing here. Then you could maybe get a high over the interior and start to point maybe some atmospheric river potential as we get towards early November here. But that's way out there, way too early to even really be talking about that. Here's Seattle, Tacoma, a nice couple warm days still coming up here, but the smoke makes things fairly unenjoyable across the region. But we should start to turn things onshore here Thursday. And then you see the pattern change come. The temperatures shown here on the European 10-day outlook. Boise, you can clearly see the pattern change occur this weekend. The high is only getting to the upper 40s and potentially 50 degrees out there after, having this nice warm period here. We're going to go through a pretty big shock here for many of us across the Pacific Northwest. Portland, very warm, and then we're going to be dropping down. You're going to notice this big time as we go through the weekend here. Klamath Falls, same thing as well. Look at some of these overnight lows. Some of the higher elevations might even get a little bit of snowfall across much of the Pacific Northwest as well. And you can see these chilly highs and chilly overnight lows exist. Missoula, look at some of this cold air just blasting into the region. Highs only into the 40s for Missoula, Montana through next week. Helena, same thing here too. Look at that shot of cold air, some chilly overnight lows, multiple systems moving through the area out there as well. Here's Portland. Models backed off a little bit. This is run to run trend. You can see it backed off the amount for Portland a bit here on this latest run yesterday afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see what this morning's run shows on the European here. It's probably running right now, in fact, but not available to us. Here's Mount Hood, kind of backed off on some of that precipitation amount there too. Kind of a big back off here, but you can still see meaningful precipitation is coming for the area. Seattle Tacoma actually bumped up a little bit as we go through the weekend, but the overall, the long term kind of pushed us back a little. It'll be interesting to see if this bounces back again here this morning. Stevens Pass, same thing as well. This would be near the Bolt Creek fire. We need as much precipitation up there as we can get, I guess, without causing mudslides and flooding. Now here's Stevens Pass here. This is showing the yesterday afternoon's ensemble run here. So you can see most ensembles agree on pretty significant snowfall as we get out towards later October. So hopefully some of this hangs around and we can start to build the base up there for some of the ski areas across the Northwest. Stevens Pass, it did back off here though on the run-to-run trend for snowfall across Stevens Pass. Here's Whistler, just kind of showing you guys the signal for some snowfall at the higher terrain through British Columbia. Mount Baker, same thing, although the overall amount did back off here on this most recent run as well. Paradise Mount Rainier, some good amounts are expected here once we start to move into Sunday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. Siskiyou Summit, still got that snowfall trend going on there. Backed off a little bit the last couple of runs here, but still showing some measurable snowfall and some measurable precipitation, making it all the way down to the California border. Now here's the windstorm outlook for Seattle, for example. You can still see some big windstorms in there, but it backed off somewhat here on the system coming through Sunday night. So it's never gotten out of fantasy stage yet. We have not been expecting there to be a windstorm yet. We're just kind of watching the potential for it. You can see some big storms out here in the future too, showing the active period continuing, but we have not zeroed in on any potential windstorm threat. Once we do, you'll see this mean wind speed start to bounce up as models converge on an area that has the potential for windstorms. So still fantasy at this point, but there is the potential in the next couple of weeks. Here's a 6 to 10 day, big pattern change coming, very apparent there. 6 to 10 day precipitation, above average bullseye there across Washington, Oregon. This is through the 28th. And this is the risk of hazardous temperatures here. The Arctic air that comes down this time of year isn't quite cold enough to cause really big problems. Once you get later into November and December, of course, the North Poles cool off quite a bit and you get that Arctic air down and you get some much more chilly temperatures across the region. So, this is not going to be quite the shock that it would be if it was late November or December. Now, taking out risk of high winds still exists here for much of the Pacific Northwest along the coastline here. Again, we do not have a good understanding on just where the placement of some of these storms are going to be or the strength of them. It doesn't take much. Some of these storms come in late and they develop really quickly and they deepen much more than the models say sometimes as you get closer to the event. So we have to watch these storm systems closely as we get closer to the events, the individual events. Now, risk for heavy precipitation, you can see this Pacific Northwest bullseye shown there. Nice to see. Nice to see this moderate risk for heavy snow across the Cascades too. Get those fires all the way out maybe. And 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. Precipitation outlook, Pacific Northwest is bullseyed there all the way through November 1st. So an active period is coming up here. I wanted to show you guys the drought monitor here as well. You can still see the moderate drought across portions of Washington, Oregon. A lot of this is going to get wiped out pretty quickly here, but the big one we want to get to is the east slopes of the Cascades. The farmers out there have a hard time with, kind of the water restrictions going on. So hopefully we can start to introduce precipitation to that area here in the next couple of weeks. This is something the U.S. Seasonal Drought Outlook gets put out, and the green and the light brown are good. That means drought remains but improves for the brown, and green is likely removal of drought conditions here. So they're kind of putting it as a given. It's going to end for Western Washington and Oregon, but we could remove drought for all of Washington State and a lot of Idaho too, and hopefully we can get it better there for some portions of the eastern Washington. Now, taking one more last look, the Himawari satellite imagery, you can see it pulling in some tropical moisture with it. It's going to help power this jet stream across the Pacific into the Pacific Northwest. We're looking at Japan and Korea here the Aleutian Islands. This is our pattern change. This frontal system is going to roll all the way across the big bulk of cold air into the Pacific Northwest. You can see Hawaii way out here, but just kind of an interesting look at the low-level water vapor loop here. So Again, we'll do this again tomorrow. We'll try to pinpoint down some of these windstorms. They've been dogging us. They're kind of been ebbing and flowing back and forth, showing different solutions each and every model run. But the potential does exist for a windstorm or two across the region here the next couple of weeks. Just continuing to watch it at this point. Nothing's got out of fantasy land yet. Once it does, we'll start to concentrate on that storm system in much more detail. So again, thanks to all my members that are signing up. You guys make this page possible. Thanks to all my subscribers, everybody leaving comments and giving me advice and information. Thank you, everyone. And we'll do this again tomorrow. I hope you guys are having a good day. Put your workouts off another day or two. Let that smoke get out of here first. And yeah, it's almost over. We only just got a day or two more to go. This nasty smoke across the region before this huge batch of cold air will bring some relief to us in the Pacific Northwest. So hope you guys are having a good day. Avoid that smoke, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.